So, we've been talking about scientism. We've shown that scientism is false. It's so obviously false. It's amazing that really this hasn't been challenged. It's like a bluff? How come nobody points this out? How come the scientists don't notice that what they're saying is totally contradicted by the very artificial objects that they made up? Okay, so it's false. Maybe it doesn't even make sense. Maybe it's illogical. Logic, what is that? Logic is the pattern of things that really happen. We get our sense of whether something is logical by observing what really happens. And if something's illogical, it means it doesn't fit into the pattern of things that really happen, so it's not going to happen. So maybe scientism actually doesn't make sense. And that's a fact. Because, so for example, every system of knowledge has axioms. For example, there are axioms in geometry, there's axioms in mathematics. Axioms are self-evident truths that you can't actually question or explore through that system itself. They're part of the basis of the system. And then beyond the axiom, so those are things right there which can't be explained. They're outside the range of a body of knowledge. But then beyond that, there's underlying principles. Like, for example, arithmetic depends on numbers. You use arithmetic to manipulate numbers. You find out what's 250 times 360, or what's 360 divided by 40. You can use a calculator to calculate these things, but you can't use a calculator to calculate what is a number. You can't even ask the question. Similarly, geometry is based on form and motion. And you can't use geometry to investigate the nature of form and motion. It's built in. So there again, you've got the axioms, then you've got underlying principles. So materialistic science says that everything is within the range of materialistic science, but there's one thing that's outside the range of material science, and that's material science itself. And I just want to explain how that is. Suppose we take a pen. Now, pens are great for writing on objects, but I can't use a pen to write on itself. Similarly, knives are good for cutting other things, right? I'm not going to cut my finger, but knives are good for cutting other things. But I can't use the knife to cut itself. Similarly, pliers are great for picking other things up. For example, you can pick up knives and you can pick up pens. But you can't use the pliers to pick up itself. Why is this? Because they're all designed to perform operations on outside objects, and they can't act on themselves. Now, if I look through a telescope, here's a video camera with a telescopic lens. So I'm looking through this telescopic lens, and I can see this vast video camera in front of me, and a huge bearded operator. But I can't see myself. I can't see myself. If you look through a telescope, you won't see the telescope, and you won't see yourself. Similarly, if we look through science at the world around us, we won't see the scientific process, and we won't see ourselves, because science only deals with outside objects. And science can't be an object for itself. It looks at things outside itself. So it can't be an object for itself. So right there, that means that science is outside the range of science. So all we have to do is to analyze the scientific process, and we'll find a whole category of real entities that are outside the range of science. Erwin Schrödinger, very thoughtful. He's a Nobel physicist. He helped to establish quantum physics. So he said, inadvertently, the thinker, scientist, steps back into the role of an external observer. This facilitates his task very much, but it leaves gaps and leads to paradoxes whenever, unaware of his original renunciation, one tries to find oneself in the picture, or to put oneself, one's own thinking and sensing mind, back into the picture. In other words, what he's saying is that science acts by taking out consciousness. So when you try and put consciousness back into the picture and investigate consciousness through material science, you just come up with paradoxes. It just doesn't work. It's an invalid procedure. So this idea that science covers everything in the universe is not only false, it just doesn't make sense, because science itself is outside, objective science is outside the range of the objective scientific process. And all its aspects are as well, including consciousness, because you have to be conscious to do science. So now we'll have a look at the different aspects of the scientific process, and we'll find a range of essential entities, real entities, that are beyond the range of physical science.